been a little while, and I apologize for that, but you would think during a pandemic, semi-lockdown, we'd all have lots of time, but it didn't really turn out that way. So I have been busy, and of course, part of my busy is that I'm always working on Tai Chi and Qigong, and I have managed a pretty big breakthrough recently that I'm very happy with. So today I'll touch on that a little bit, but mostly what we're going to do today is choreography for Step Back to Repulse Monkey. Now when we do this, there is one thing that's a little bit different about this than most of our common postures, and that is that we have both our feet parallel to each other and facing directly forward. Now this is not very common because almost any stance we're in our rear foot is usually at a 45-degree angle. So according to Master Liang, the reason that we have our feet parallel is not only to open the ankle and the foot, but that there's an area back here that can help us with completing the major chi flow down the major front channel, going through the bottom and up the rear channel. So he used to tell a story about a Yang Style practitioner that had a big breakthrough doing this, and by changing the posture slightly, especially the footwork, and then repeating the posture, he said that it was like a half day or something that he was moving through Repulse Monkey, and finally he opened the last blockage that he had. So I'm not going to dwell on that too much, but I will tell you that the application for what's going on involves one hand doing a pulling action, and that pulling action is pretty much solely because we change weight. There's no actual pull, and that's true in all of Tai Chi. If we're pushing or pulling, we're not really doing those things in a normal sense. We always have to be using body as a single unit, and that rules out you can't move arms and legs around kind of randomly. It has to be, everything is working in a very geared manner. So when we step back doing Repulse Monkey, we'll assume that not only are we in contact with our partner or opponent, but that we're actually connected to them. And that's another subject. It's a fairly advanced manner. But if you just kind of do this to someone, you don't have a connection. We, at our stage anyways, we need to create some stretching through us that goes into our partner and eventually connects us. Eventually you can aim your connection through different parts of the other person's body, but at least into the dantian. So we assume that when we're in the beginning position, that our contact point here, we're actually connected to our opponent. Now if we fall backwards, which unfortunately is what a lot of people do, because our body has become loose, we're not going to be able to use Tai Chi energies, Tai Chi Peng, to do anything, so the movement's going to be wrong. What we need to do is create a connection to the other person, create that connection through us down into at least dantian and into the hip area, and when we step, we do it in a very, very controlled manner. You can see when I did that step, that very little of me moved. I didn't sway or falter or anything like that. My weight remained here, and when I stepped, the weight was still here. Now with a controlled weight shift, that's a very controlled movement that's using body as a single unit, and I demonstrate this frequently in class with my students, so it's a proven thing. There's no guesswork here. This does work. So the second part of what we're doing, and this movement can vary quite a bit, but as we're pulling the person, we're also issuing energy into them. So I'm doing it more right now as it would be used in use in application, but we stylize it in the form that the rear arm is pointing upwards and the front arm is forward on a downward angle. So that's how it would look when we're expressing power, and using the hip and the shoulder and the weight change, all of this to pull. But excuse me, the pull Many people mistakenly assume that this is the major part of the posture, but it's not. This is becoming my stable side, and so what that tells us is that anything connected to this side is being used to destabilize the partner that you're working with. The power is actually coming out of the front. And again, when we start talking about that, a lot of people say, well, I don't know how you would do that because my front is empty. But when I move backwards, it's kind of like this, and you know, if I relax up here, then there's no energy anywhere. So this is kind of a part of the breakthrough that I had recently, and I can tell you this much fairly simply, is that the shoulder goes down, the elbow goes down, and your hip, the front hip, is sitting on your front foot. When you go back, if you loosen that connection between your hip and your foot, then of course all your pung disappears. There's no root or balance center, no integrity. You've just become loose. And we don't want that. We want the shoulder to press to the elbow, and the elbow to press to the hip, and the hip to press down into the foot. As usual, you can't tighten. You can't make this happen. What you have to do is, by loosening and aligning your body and rooting the body, you create this pung that once you've cultivated it sufficiently is going to come out and exhibit a lot of power as you're retreating. So that's a really great thing about this posture. It's going to show you how to do something fairly unique in the Tai Chi world. So the first posture, we come from fist under elbow and a big turn. So I'll just turn around so you can see that more clearly. When we're doing this movement, a lot of people make a mistake of breaking body as a single unit, and what they'll have is this arm more or less moves on its own because they've stopped moving here. Now this is part of body as a single unit, that if your hips quit moving, nothing else can move, because if it does, you're broken in many places, your alignment is gone, and you're not going to be able to exhibit pump. So doing Tai Chi, any particular posture that you can pick, it should be that as you're moving through that posture, you have 360 degrees of power, no holes in your posture. So stepping back in this manner, I check my feet are both parallel, that's all good. When I finish my step back, I'm sitting on the front hip. And now by releasing more, not by tightening, but by releasing my shoulder elbow to my hip and then releasing my hip down onto my foot, it's like this entire side is being squeezed quite strongly. And what's issuing out of that squeeze is my palm. So there's two quite separate actions. There's press down through the front, rotate and sit into the rear hip, and that of course is the ending of the posture. Now what we started getting into was the rotate here. When this rotation happens, the movement of your arm and hand have to be exactly reflected by hip movement and belly movement. Otherwise you've broken several different principles. So if your hips are not very supple, you're not strong enough to sit very well, you can do a small motion. Okay, there's no problem with that. But as you're doing it, again, make sure that arm and waist are moving exactly together. And as you develop the ability to root into your hip more, now you can get a very big expansive movement. You should be in your hands. Your arms are not going to be exactly 180. If you try for a 180, you're going to end up, you've pushed your chest open and forced the chest into that position, creating way too much tension. The chest, as usual, should be rounded in. This arm does continue to point forward. This one is just doing a circling motion, comes back close to the ear. So after the step, the movement backward with a small rotation, that's the end of the posture. And then to begin, the next one we go here, rotating and sitting on the hip one, sitting even lower, rotating forward, close to your ear, almost on your ribs, and stepping so that all your weight is on, for me right now, it's my left side. And when I do perform my step, mostly what people need to do on this one is not step with their foot on an angle, if you want to do it in Master Leon's manner. So when we step, it's the toe that touches, and most people have to kind of kick the heel outward until they become accustomed to doing this. And in doing so, you end up with the feet straight. So at this point, touching the toe, my weight should be here. As the heel touches, my weight is still here, and I'm all ready to now compress down through my left front side and again here. So in the long form, we do 5 of these, and in the short form, we only do 3 of them. And the next posture each time is diagonal flying. Diagonal flying, I'm seeing a lot of people with their arms really out of control, and again, breaking many rules. The rule for your elbow, you have to remember, is that it should be always rooted. It's a major joint that we need to learn to control. So when we begin doing diagonal flying, your elbows should be coming in tight to the body so that you can rotate through the elbows into a position like that. There's no reason to be making great huge movements like that. Okay, so Tai Chi is generally, we do say make your body big, but we don't have excessive movements. You know, for a lot of people looking at Tai Chi, they'll say it's very compact. Our movements, our hand movements, we're not way out there doing things like that. It's very kind of disguised quite often. So from the end of step back to Repulse Monkey, again, we're sitting and rotating. Our shoulders are both rotating. You need to really loosen the shoulder, drop your elbow, and rotate into this position. That's 1, 2, hand position, palm down, palm up, and the right arm inside. Then when we step, the right hand is only going to come down parallel to the ground. Throughout almost all of this posture, your fingers should line up with your nose. So we do our step, and as we step, we don't want to fall or turn in this direction. We want to stay here, and we should actually have really slightly turned towards our left. So on the next motion, this hand is going to stay right where it is. I'm going to sink through my rear hip, shoulder, elbow, so my arm ends up in this kind of rounded shape again. And this arm doesn't really move. As the body moves, it appears to move, but even on the last movement, my hand should be right on my nose here. So that's the ending appearance of diagonal flying. Is the rear foot is on a 90-degree angle, the front foot is on a 45-degree angle, and our belly at the very last count should rotate in towards your front leg, which in this case is the right leg. Now the other side, this shouldn't need to be said, but also loose through the hip. Okay, this is another constant thing in Tai Chi. There should be no time when you lock your hips. They're always a little bit bent, and that for a lot of people takes a lot of training just to loosen through here. So today I'm writing an article, and I hope it'll show up pretty soon. Again, I'm struck by how tense people are, and I don't mean just superficially that they'll go into a posture like this and hold their breath up here, but mentally, physically, and spiritually, many of us, more than I ever dreamed of. And you know, to pin a cause is really beyond my field of expertise, but from what I can see, it's generally fear. So it could be fear of a whole lot of different things. It could be something from your childhood. It could be some marital issues. It could be you're afraid for your health or afraid of falling. But what I see, my experience tells me that the reason most people tighten their bodies is fear. And I'm here to tell you that Tai Chi is one of the best solutions for getting over that. I mean, you don't want to go through life that you're so restricted by fear that you're unable to break out, and your entire mind, body, and spirit are being affected by all this excess tension you have. So two very, very simple things you can do is bend your hip and be mindful through the day that when you lock, that you're actually harming yourself on several different levels. So the other thing, and this is the most easy thing you can do, and if you carry a cell phone around, you can put a timer on, so every 5 minutes your phone says to you, just stop and take a breath. That absolutely is one of the easiest way. Well, if you don't believe my explanation of why people are tightening, it doesn't matter why. What matters is that people are carrying around excessive tension, and this method of either bending your hip or pausing and taking a breath can gradually let you escape from that prison. And I'm quite sincere about this. Mentally, physically, spiritually, we're all affected a lot more than we think we are. So just a little mention there. This is a lot of what Tai Chi is for, is to teach you how to relax. So when you go through Tai Chi and you're doing this, you're killing the art. You're taking away what that art could give you and transforming the art away from what it is into your very tense version of it. So the best way to get away from that is sink your breath, sink your hip, sink your shoulders, align the body, pause, and do a short check-in. What's your breath doing? Is it up here? Is it rapid? Right? How calm is your body at any given moment? And what is happening up here? If this is happening, undoubtedly your breath is also up here. So it's really, really worthwhile. Take a moment, and it doesn't have to be as you're doing the form, although in this article I'm writing, one of the things I do say is to cultivate Tai Chi, to pull out of Tai Chi the benefits of it. As we're going through the form now, I'll just back up for a minute. The very first thing, so that you can access the health benefits of Tai Chi, are learn the form. Okay, and at this stage, it doesn't have to be good. It just means you can get through the form. You're pretty aware every instance what comes next. And then practice so that eventually you don't even have to think about what comes next. It's in your body, it's in your mind, and now what you can do is you can think about more important things like, am I bending my hip? Where's my breath? What are my shoulders doing? Take a break out of your life. Give yourself a holiday. Every time you do Tai Chi, it should be, give myself a holiday. And this is what's happening when we do Repulse Monkey correctly. If you're quite tight, probably the waist, the arm, and the hip are not going to work together. You're going to be reflecting your attention. But if you can take a moment and work on this idea of everything has to go together. And I want to be very stable as I'm doing this. So in this position, right, we should be in a position where we can step without worrying about our balance, that we can make all the adjustments required and remain very relaxed as we're going through. Okay, here, I let go, I breathe. I am thinking choreography, but I'm also realizing that if I do the choreography with a lot of tension, I'm going to train myself to do Tai Chi in a very tense manner. And then I won't be getting out of it what I want out of it. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate this with my back to you in the beginning. That's the way most students see me, and then I'll turn around so you can get more detailed arm movement. So we're going to start, we're in the second section of the Yang 37 short form, and we're beginning, we have just finished diagonal single whip, going into fist under elbow. So here, when this happens, you can't really see it that well because of the uniform, but the elbow is solid on both sides. I'm sitting deep into my rear hip. So to begin with, both hips are quite well bent. I have slightly more weight on the front. With my first movement, I go all the way back until my toe actually comes up. Now this leg's not tight either, it's very, very loose. So my weight is all here, and from this position I'm going to step mostly outwards, and enough that when I get to this position I'm going to have shoulder width between my feet. And my arms are in the same position, they really haven't moved, they're pretty much at a 90-degree angle, and I'm trying to lengthen from my back through the elbow right out into my hands on both sides. So the next movement, as I step my right foot up, I'm going to twist slightly so that I center and balance more on the front, and then right foot comes up, pointed at a 45-degree angle. Arms still in roughly the same position. And now my root changes to the right side. I rotate through the hip and on my toe. Okay, now arms, not 180. They're quite separated, but they're nowhere near 180, and both palms in this position face downwards. Here, I'm sitting on my heel, and that is quite important. If you have a concern for your joints or you have any kind of lower body issues, you always want to do your best to keep your weight off your knee. When you're sitting back like this, the closer to your heel you can bring your weight, the less weight you'll have on your knee, and that's quite desirable, of course. So that was 4, 5, 6. Okay, this hand not exactly facing up, but pretty close, palm open, palm faces to the right. This hand in a loose fist under the elbow, and thus fist under elbow. So now for the first few movements of step back repulse monkey, you can see that this is moving, but it's not moving on its own, it's moving from the hip. Palm down, palm up, sit even more, and even more weight goes back here because I know I have a step coming up. You see how compact my arms are. This is, you don't need to do this. If it's helpful, go ahead and do it. Balancing in the middle, and then toe touches, heel kicks, sit down, but with your weight still on the front. So one time only, this foot has to do a very minor adjustment to point forward. Then issue backwards. This is a 4 count. This is 1, 2, 3, the weight is still on the front, and 4, weight rolled backwards. 1, big turn, so your belly button, your center line, should almost go 90 degrees over this way. 2, facing forward. 3, 4. At the end of each one of these, our belly button or center line should be not quite, but almost 45-degree angle. So getting into diagonal flying, this is hip and shoulders and elbows all working together so that your arms exhibit palm. 2, sit down and balance. When you step, don't fall, don't turn, and don't change weight. From here, as you step, make an attempt to turn towards your left, towards your stable part of your body. Okay, then with the weight change, this arm comes down, sit strongly, and toe in, And that should be the end of the posture at that point. Okay, I will do it from a new direction, facing towards you so you can better see details of the movement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Repulse monkey, 1, 2, 3, with the adjustment, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, diagonal flying. 1, 2, 3, make sure you aim your toe in this position, and then just sink on the rear side. Sink, shoulder, elbow, hip, all the way down, and this arm again doesn't move. 3, at the end I'm sitting on my right hip, toe in, and end up 45 degrees. Okay, yeah. A very nice posture, one of our more elegant postures. So I hope that was helpful, and some of my meanderings were helpful to you also. And that's it for this session. So next time, what we'll do is the transition from diagonal flying going into wave hands. This is a little bit different than the way we do it in the long form. So we'll take some time with that and make clear to you how you can do this and improve your art. See you again shortly.